to the most original talk radio station anywhere. We are LA Talk Radio at latalkradio.com.
You're listening to Cannabis Nation with your hosts, Mike Boutin and Julie Rose, right here on LA Talk Radio.
Welcome, Cannabis Nation.
And welcome to Cannabis Nation. It's time for an honest conversation about marijuana. Listeners can go to the guest info page on our website, cannabisnationradio.com, to get more information about tonight's show. We have with us Julia from McWilliams.org, and be sure to like us on Facebook at facebook.com/reformwarrior. Also on the guest info page tonight, you'll notice that there is a mention of Patricia Spotted Crow being released from prison this past week. Patricia is the Oklahoma Native American who was sentenced to 12 years in prison for a few joints worth of marijuana. We'll be talking with her next week about her ordeal. In the meantime, we're asking listeners if they can afford sending her a couple bucks to help her get through the holidays and help her buy heating oils for the winter. She could really use the help. Her arrest took a toll, and she has 4 little ones, so she needs a little boost during the holidays to get her back on her feet. If you can pop a holiday card in the mail with a couple bucks, her address is on our website. It goes straight to Patricia Spotted Crow. And in case you didn't know, this past Wednesday, Washington State made history when the governor signed into law Initiative 502, allowing social consumption by adults, of course, of marijuana in the state of Washington without a medical requirement.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. In Colorado, too. And everybody's talking about Washington, but I think that, Colorado passed a very similar law, and I think their time zone is earlier, so they're probably going to contest that. But you know what? Getting on to tonight's show, all of us stand on the shoulders of someone who came before us. You know that? We wouldn't even have what's going on in Colorado and Washington if that wasn't the case. And maybe we know who they are, and maybe we don't. But, excuse me, there's nothing new under the sun. Injustice has been around a long time. And, I know for myself, every time I think I've thought of something original or, I've created some new product or something, I investigate, only to find that I stand in a long line.
Well, Mike, things are cyclical, and the human experience and the history of it tells us a lot about ourselves. And, technology progresses and humanity is either static or in decline in terms of working for the common good.
Yeah, but in all times, people will stand up, they'll step out, they'll make it about giving it away, so to speak. And Peter McWilliams was that kind of a guy. So, if you're an advocate for medical marijuana, you stand on the shoulder of Peter's, among other great advocates, but he's the one we're going to be talking about tonight. And he was so many things that it would really be impossible to do it all justice in 45 minutes or 47, whatever we'll have. But he was a writer, a self-help guru, a tech guy, a poet, a gay libertarian. That's I love that right there in and of itself. An AIDS patient and a medical marijuana advocate. But most of all, he was inspiring.
That's right, Mike. And Peter was also a photographer and director. But Peter McWilliams died June 14th, 2000, from complications due to his court-ordered abstention from medical marijuana. But he was so compelling and inspiring that a young woman named Julia was inspired to buy petermcwilliams.org, a site dedicated to keeping Peter's legacy alive, and completely revamped it. And now both of us would like to welcome Julia to Cannabis Nation Radio. Welcome, Julia.
Hey, Julia.
Hi, what a welcome. Thank you.
Hey, so like always, every week I always like to start out with some, introductory stuff. But see, in this case, I want to do a little disclaimer because you're really, really about making it about Peter and not wanting to be about you, but in the sense that Peter was inspiring, your evidence and your proof of that, we sort of have to talk about you for a little bit at first, so I hope you don't mind about that. But let's start off with where you're from.
Well, I'm kind of from everywhere. I'm on the East Coast now. I feel like I'm on the wrong coast. I feel like I wish I was on the left coast because that's where it seems like everything is happening.
Yeah, well, it is. It's happening everywhere, actually, because, it's kind of funny. You look at the political map and you look at the medical marijuana map, and it's almost like the blue and green match up. But you don't even use marijuana, though, right? Isn't that true?
Yes. Strangely enough, I am what Roger Christie termed a cannabis virgin, and just, I guess, by choice. And it's caused a few, feathers to be ruffled, and a few eyebrows raised, like, what are you, a cop? What are you, a DEA agent? I'm like, no, I'm just a girl, I just don't smoke it. But you don't have to partake to take part. That's my saying.
Oh, that's a good saying.
Thank you.
That's right. How did you first hear of Peter McWilliams?
Well, in 2009, I saw this book title, You Can't Afford the Luxury of a Negative Thought. And it was just such a strange title. And I thought, wow, this looks interesting. And so I ended up reading the whole thing, which is amazing because I'm a real slow reader. And I was just so fascinated by it that by the end, I wanted to thank Mr. McWilliams. So I went online and I was trying to find out his contact info, and then I found out he died. And it was like the worst way of finding out how he died. I didn't have a person to tell me. I just had Wikipedia to tell me. And I know this sounds dumb, but I cried for like 30 minutes because his words had touched me so deep. It was like a friend talking to me. And wow. That's when something just, it was so weird. Something just set off inside me. And I thought, I want to just do something for this man. And that's when the MySpace page was born.
I don't think that's weird at all. I think that's one of the most fascinating things about it. And, I'd heard of Peter before, but I really, truly didn't know as much about him as I do now. And really, I just was amazed by what a magnificent person he was, if I can use that term, because he was really a man of the arts. I mean, he wrote books, and but it was mostly all, whatever the topic was, and there were lots of them, and you can tell us about it, but it was really about helping people, and you're like such a good example of the kind of influence that he had on people.
Oh, goodness, thank you. Yes, he was what they'd call a Renaissance man. You hit the nail right on the head. He started writing poetry, and he helped people with computers. I mean, he was like one of the very first people to write about computers, and he actually used humor when he did it. And, and he went on to write Surviving, which became How to Survive the Loss of a Love, which is still out there and available through me, actually, yay. And which is an amazing book. I can't tell you how many people that's helped. Kristen Floor, I don't know if you're familiar with her story, but she just lost her dad, cannabis patient, imprisoned, everything like that. And just reminded me of Peter. Yeah, and I sent her a copy, and she was really moved by it. So, and that was written in 1971.
Wow.
And can you imagine, his words never grow old. That's why when people say stuff like, oh, Peter's story is old, it's old news, it happened, he died 12 years ago, why would anyone care now? And I answer them, hey, look, people are so touched by this man. Every single day I hear it from people. People have literally, changed their lives, and some people have even saved their lives because of him.
Right. I mean,
wow, that's interesting.
I think that.
What does your family think about what you're doing?
Oh, no comment. Let's just put it this way.
Okay, well, let's flip that. What does his family think about what you're doing?
Thank you. His family, well, goodness, I know his mom's going to be so upset with me. She never wants me to bring her up, but his mom has become a mom to me, so. Goodness. from the start, I asked for her blessing. I said, "Can I start this MySpace page?" And she said yes. So, you know, I believe
awesome.
that you can pick. I believe you can pick your family too. If you've had it really bad, like I've had, you can pick your family.
You have to.
Right.
And that's what I'm doing. And but she's really influential to me. She's been sending me Peter's like handwritten poems that no one has seen before, and I've been posting them on petermcwilliams.org, and it's just really awesome to see in his own writing. You know, like
right.
it's just there's nothing like it.
Yeah,
you know?
That's got to be really, really great. I mean,
because people may not realize that he really wrote a lot. He wrote, 40 books?
Over 40, yes, and 5 of them actually hit the New York Times bestseller list. And what's really cool is he self-published every one of those.
Yeah, in a time
before the internet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, that's what's so amazing about him. He, you know, wow, it's so easy today. You could just post something and the whole world sees it. But imagine what he had to go through to get it published. And it's so amazing. And the book, You Can't Afford the Luxury of a Negative Thought, he was turned down by 20 publishers. 20.
Oh, wow.
They all said, he went to all the big guys, and they all said, nope, this book stinks. And he said, okay, I'm going to go do this on my own, and it became the New York Times bestseller. And
I wonder how he did that. I mean, I really wonder, do you know what it took or what he did to accomplish that?
A lot of hard work and a lot of dedication, and he set up his own publishing companies. I mean, he had several, you know. He had Versemonger Press and Prelude Press and, you know, a whole host of others. He was just so talented. It's just poured out of him, you know?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, well, you know, speaking of his mom and all of the different things that he was, and I'm sorry to have to do it that way, but I want to speak to her for a minute and help her out because I think, you know, we like to educate on the show and I like to keep it real. But, you know, if you Google Peter and you check out some, you know, stuff based on what you're hearing tonight, you're going to find a YouTube video of the 1998 Libertarian Convention where Peter delivered a very, very cool address where he came out as a gay man. And it's a really, really great video. And the thing that I want to get across to his mom is that, you know, we live in a different time now. We live in a time where, you know, people are evolving and being able to look, you know, beyond that sort of thing. And I think in that sense, what I just wanted to say to people is, like, you take a guy like me. I mean, I've been a conservative. I'm sort of liberal on some things, and certainly about cannabis. But, you know, when it came to gayness, you know, because I grew up, you know, and where you weren't exposed to that sort of thing, it's easy to be biased. And if you're not willing to open yourself up to understanding people, you're going to find yourself on the wrong side of issues. And I didn't really understand it very well until I met a couple of gals. And Tanya and I loved these gals. And, you know, we just loved hanging out with them. And, you know, it was like a year before we sort of knew that they were together and it was a gay thing. And that's what really did it for me in terms of being able to shed some societal homophobia, was to see that, you know, people are people apart from that sort of thing. And maybe when I was in my 20s and 30s, I would have probably dismissed Peter and missed out on a lot of really, really awesome thought and heart and soul. And I don't mean to take over the show by saying that, but I just wanted to be honest and real about it and come out and say that we've changed so much, Mom, that here's a self-confessed former bigot, biased guy who's calling your son a magnificent human being.
Wow.
Yeah. That's a mouthful, Mike.
Well, it was important for me to say it.
It's important. I feel like, you know, people are drawn to Peter for different reasons. And then, okay, they might find out he's gay, but I think it doesn't really change their views. I mean, in my experience, I've really never had anyone say, oh my God, he's gay. Oh, I'm never going to pick up his book again. I mean,
right.
they really don't act like it. I mean, Peter's
But I sort of had to bring it up, though, because I would hope that a lot of what we do on the show isn't that we preach to the choir. I would hope that through my other advocacy and the other things that I do, that we get people on Cannabis Nation, maybe sometimes that haven't made up their mind about cannabis. And if you're against cannabis, it's probably a pretty good bet that you're probably against gays as well. And so in that sense, I just felt like maybe tying the two together and the context of Peter was a pretty good idea.
Well, that's good.
I'm curious, who do you seem to get the most support or feedback from? The gay community, the libertarians, or the medical marijuana community?
Great question.
Oh, goodness. Honestly, a big part of it's the cannabis community, the libertarian community as well. Judge Jim Gray, who was running with Gary Johnson, I was able to interview him at Seattle Hemp Fest. And
awesome.
Big fan of Peter's, big fan. And he really knew his stuff. He wasn't just faking it. And I was able to help introduce him at the Boston Freedom Rally, which was a huge honor. But what touches me about him is he doesn't even smoke, too. He's never smoked like me. So we got something in common. But then you've got,
Julie Rose doesn't either. I know we don't hit on that very often because, I mean, why? It's kind of like the sexuality thing. Why does it matter? But she doesn't smoke either.
You don't?
Nope.
That's so, goodness, sometimes I feel like such a freak, because a lot of these people are like, you're not a pot person. You're not one of us. And I'm like, yeah, I am. I'm fighting alongside with you. I mean, goodness.
Hey, that's just dumb to say. I mean, come on.
Well, it's happened, unfortunately, too much in this community. I mean, it's amazing who's said it, to me. It's like wild. But it kind of makes me keep on keeping on even stronger, though. It's like, hey, look, I'm not going to give up. I think a lot of people thought, wow, this girl just, it's a passing phase, or she'll get over it. And then 2 years into it, they see how much it's growing, and they're like, well, I guess she was for real in the first place. I guess she wasn't a DEA agent after all.
That's so dumb. Listen, you want to know what you need to understand, and I don't mean to be condescending, but here's the thing. I sort of, we all know that there's jerks out there, right? But, sometimes we just expect that, marijuana people will be cool. Maybe they'll be mellow. They'll be, all the, there's stereotypes, right? But you know what? Seriously. Oh, yeah. Just because people use marijuana doesn't mean they're cool. It doesn't mean they're mellow. And it doesn't mean that you ought to be friends with them.
Wow, I've actually learned that. And it's just, I kind of call it a pot prejudice,
Yeah.
From some people that it's kind of a weird, I can't even describe it. It feels like at times that people aren't shunning me necessarily, but they're not really letting me in as much as they would someone who smokes.
That's sad.
And it kind of makes me sad, because we're supposed to all be in this together. And I noticed, with my friends, in Washington State especially, with the whole I-502 debate, on both sides, my goodness, it got so ugly. And, the personal attacks, it wasn't just, I stayed out of it, clearly out of it.
Yeah.
But I feel like, I could never speak for Peter, but I feel like if Peter were with us, that he would have really frowned on this, because he had his opinions, God bless him. He was highly opinionated, and, but the thing is, he would never disrespect you as a person. He would still respect you as a person. He might disagree.
Because it was really a libertarian viewpoint that everyone had their right to their opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And basically their freedoms, which was most important to him, that you didn't trample on my right and I didn't trample on yours, and the government let us just kind of do our own thing as well.
Right, and it's just, I
like that whole founders thing.
With the people just at each other's throats, and I'm thinking, how are we ever going to repeal prohibition if we cannot even get along with each other? And even if you can't get along with each other, okay, you still respect the other person's activism.
Right.
You know, you don't have
You
to
can
like
dislike
them,
someone,
but my goodness.
right. You can dislike someone's views and even state that to them without disliking them. I mean, there's plenty of people in this county.
Without personally attacking them.
Right,
exactly.
absolutely.
We've seen a lot of that.
Yeah.
I know,
and
it breaks my heart, you know?
You know what? I'm betting the place this happens to you is because one of the things I wanted to touch on is you travel to a lot of these, cannabis events to get the word out, and I'm betting that's exactly where these things are happening to you at. Why don't you tell us some of the places you go, and maybe some of the things that have happened to you that are your more pleasant experiences?
Well, something near and dear to my heart. Oh, goodness, I want to gush. Mr. Marco Renda, Treating Yourself Expo in Canada. I think about that event and I want to cry, like tears of joy. Oh goodness, I'm going to start crying. He's he's been so good to me.
He does a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
he does a lot of stuff.
And he really cares about the patients. And the whole event was so patient-based and so caring. Oh my goodness. But I'm going to go back there next May. Everybody should go there. Treating Yourself, .com, and love you, Mr. Marco. But anyways, besides that, I was at Hempstock for the first time in Oregon, in Portland, and Mr. Paul Stanford and Ms. Teresa, his beautiful wife. I can't even explain it. They treated me like family there. I felt like...
That's awesome.
How do I put this?
I'll ask him about that because... not to interrupt you, but let's see, the 4th. Yeah, January 4th, we're going to have Paul on the show, so I'll have to ask him about it.
Oh, that's so wonderful. And, I had interviewed him about Peter, and I'm going to release that on December 15th on my YouTube channel. But the thing about that event, too, is that they treated every speaker like they were just as important as the other one. No one was, to me, It didn't seem like they played favorites, and it's just everybody... It's just, it gave me goosebumps. And there was the Boston Freedom Rally, obviously, where they let me introduce Judge Gray. This man named Dexter was going to introduce him, and he was kind enough to just let me get on the stage and, here's Judge Gray. So that,
I like
that
Judge Gray.
Really cool. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
And then obviously there's the Seattle Hemp Fest, which is the biggest one. And it's really weird because I was walking around those grounds and I had this poster of Peter, and I was walking around with this poster of Peter, and this guy goes, "Who the bleep is that guy? I've never heard of him." And I looked at him straight in the face, which is really hard for me to do because I'm really shy. And I said, "Well, you should know." Because my goodness, they named a whole stage after Peter. I mean, come on, McWilliams Memorial Stage. So, I mean,
and
it amazes
what occurred to me. No, go ahead. No, I thought you were almost. Never mind. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I babble when I'm really nervous. I'm sorry.
No. Well, here's what I was going to say. I was just thinking back a few minutes ago. When we were talking about all the vitriol that happens, and I've been involved in some of those over some stuff until I sort of sorted it out in my mind and realized that that's just really not what I want to be about. But I think it would be going on a lot less if Peter was still around because of the nature of who he was. A lot of what happens that causes this vitriol is like you were explaining. One of the things you liked is they treated the speakers the same. See, because everybody's jockeying to be somebody. Everybody, it's like the Sooners. It's like, man, if I can get there first. And a lot of times they lose sight of the patients and they lose sight of the cause. And because truly one of the uphill battles that we have that we touched on a little bit earlier is that there's a perception problem. And when we have people playing into it and acting badly and representing marijuana, well, it's just, come on, man. That's what you call a self-inflicted wound.
Well, I feel, too, that I just personally feel a lot of times it just seems like this big popularity contest, like who's more known, who's more popular. Right. And really, I shy away from that. You know, I'm not here to be known and, you know, be loved or whatever. I'm here to celebrate Peter and to educate others. And I don't want it to be about me. It's not about me. It's about we, you know?
Yeah, and you couldn't be repping a better guy to, you know, be, you know, putting forth I mean, what am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is you keep channeling what he was about and the things that he said, it'll all mellow out over time. You know what I mean? People will, like, read something here or there, and they'll go, oh, wow, I'm ashamed of myself. I'm embarrassed. Or, wow, that guy's really smart.
Yes, definitely. Well, in the case of Peter, too, you know, he had the judge that a lot of people feel killed him, but Peter, the way that he would relate to him was actually extremely respectful, and he would have his supporters write him. And he would instruct his supporters, hey, you address this man respectfully. You treat him with respect. And it just amazes me because you look around and people are just dissing each other. And it's like tearing each other apart. And I just wonder, where's the movement if you're not really moving?
Right. And you know, the thing is that you have to watch out for self-inflicted wounds, like I said, but also this whole idea that people like you aren't part of it because you don't use, that's so preposterous. That's like saying that, you know, if you carried bullets in the trenches, you know, that you didn't have anything to do with to win the war because you didn't shoot anybody. Really? That's just dumb.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And also what I find kind of interesting is a few people kind of said to me, well, you know, when you do these speeches, no one really wants to hear about anything but the cannabis. They don't care about the fact that Peter helped those who had depression. They don't care about his poetry. They just want to hear about the cannabis. And I'm finding the opposite is true. So many people in the cannabis community are suffering so hard from depression. Right. And they find that Peter's words, like in How to Heal Depression, which was co-authored by his friend and also therapist at times, Harold Bloomfield, they find so much comfort in his words. I mean, you know, when they wrote, you are no more at fault for having depression than if you had asthma, diabetes, heart disease, or any other illness. That speaks to people in the cannabis community just as much as things that he said about cannabis do.
That's true because a lot of people, I think, are self-medicating.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's the thing about Peter. When I really dove into it, apart from the marijuana thing, I was like, wow, everything Peter, his whole like compass was directed towards helping others, but at the same time, you can tell by some of the content and the fact that, you know, he worked through it that. See, there's certain, you've heard the term, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade, right? Well, I have this thing that I call being a master lemonade maker. And for me, you know, Peter was like a master.
Yes. Oh, yes, he definitely was. And he was very colorful. He could roar when he was mad. He was a Leo, you know? You know, he wasn't perfect, and that's the other thing. People, I guess, they expect me to just bow before him and treat him like a god. I really don't. He was a human. He had flaws like everyone else, but that's what makes him beautiful, you know? That's what made him interesting. And there's so many things about him, and that's what I admire in both of you. And the way that you introduced him tonight, you didn't just sit there and say, oh, he was a cannabis activist. I mean, you said all the other beautiful things about him, too. And that's so important. You can't just remember him for one thing, you know, because there's so many things attached to him. So that's why I make darn tootin' sure that when I get on that stage at Seattle or wherever and I only have 5 minutes to speak, I will speak about the depression that he helped people cure. I'll speak about computers that he helped people with. I'll speak about all that stuff because that's so important for them to know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's really surprising. And there's a really big movement, especially of young people, that are really jumping on the libertarian bandwagon. And he wrote the libertarian basically manifesto, "Ain't Nobody's Business If You Do."
Yes.
Which is kind of the libertarian Bible now, right?
Oh, yes. In fact, Judge Gray called it that too. And
oh, cool.
You've got all these people admiring it. I mean, it's just amazing. And these activists that are in prison now, or who have been in prison, I mean, you've got Winston Matthews, who is in prison. You have Robert Platshorn, who you're going to have on as a guest. He wrote some amazing words about Peter that I'm going to post soon. You got Mr. Mark Emery, who's written about Peter. You've got, oh goodness, I could go on. There's just so many people that are today's cannabis activists that that's the other thing I'm wondering about, why people are like, oh, why do we need to remember him? We've got all these people of today. Well, these people of today are very much influenced by the people of yesterday.
There you go.
Including all those fans of Jack Herer.
That's a good point.
Yeah, right. Jack Herer actually was at Peter's memorial service.
Right. We stand on the shoulders of the people that came before us. If we don't, we're not very good students of our movement, and we're not very good students of history either.
Oh, yes, and Mr. Chris Williams, who is now, he's facing over 80 years of prison. He's heard of Peter. He admires him, too. You've got Dana Beal, too. I mean, the list goes on of all these wonderful warriors that they all respect Peter. So I just don't get it when someone will say, well, I admire blankety blank, but I don't care about learning about Peter. It's like, don't you know that blankety blank wouldn't make it without Peter blazing the trail before you? Pun intended. Even by a cannabis virgin.
Julia, what is the most inspiring thing?
Wait a minute, I gotta take the phone away. I'm gonna snort. Wait a minute. Okay. Oh my God. I'm sorry. I snort when I laugh.
That's funny. That's funny.
Do you snort when you laugh, Ms. Julie? Please tell me you do.
No.
Oh,
sorry.
I was
Julia, I do have a question for you. What is the most inspiring thing that has happened to you since this started?
Oh, goodness. Does it have to be rolled into one?
Frame it however you want.
Wow. I wasn't prepared for this question, ladies and gentlemen.
Good one, then. Hey, we could do it we could do it like a game show, and you could kind of keep that floating around back there, and we could come back to it.
Well, okay. Well, I'll have to think about it. I'll have to think about that one. But the problem is my memory's so bad. By the time you come back to me, I'll be like, what's the question again?
Well, you know what, though? It sounds like it's maybe been a lot of different things. It doesn't really have to be one thing. But, just some of the things that have really been inspiring to you since this all started. Well,
okay, there was a gentleman that told me that he was pretty much on the verge of completing suicide. He had the gun loaded. That's as far as he had gotten.
Wow.
And he had picked up Peter's book. He had read about the tribute, and I guess he was inspired by what we had to say, and he read Peter's book, and he said that kept him from pulling the trigger. I mean,
wow.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful.
Yes. So that's pretty, that's pretty inspirational right there.
Oh, definitely.
I wonder
12 years later. Mm-hmm.
What was Peter's IQ, I wonder? I mean, not that that's the measure of a person's soul, but he certainly was an intelligent fellow.
Oh, goodness. I mean, I personally would rate him a genius, but I'm very biased, young lady. I'm not sure he was above intelligence. I love the fact that he couldn't spell like me. He was an awful, he was an awful speller. Yes, and
that's interesting, especially since he wrote so many books.
Yeah, exactly.
I know, isn't that great?
And
Isn't
spell
that
check
great?
wasn't around. You didn't have spell check, like read it all up for you.
Well, yeah, that was back in the day. He actually had to hire editors to do all the work for him. And in this one book, this one word was misspelled, and then it was spelled correctly, and then it was misspelled again. And I can't remember what word, but it was so funny. It was just like, oh my goodness, Peter, I hope you didn't pay this person too much.
Thought still conveyed, you know what I mean? It's sort of one of those like typos, you know. It's one of those. It's like the Leonard Skinner album with the flames on it, you know.
Yeah, definitely. As far as another inspiration, I had kind of just stumbled upon this. He was in the process of writing this, I call it a masterpiece. I think enough people that have seen it call it a masterpiece. It was like a big picture book. And it's called A Question of Compassion. An AIDS cancer patient explores medical marijuana. And he was in the middle of writing it. And unfortunately, he died during the writing of it. And I don't know what happened. It just got buried online. And so I discovered it. And his mom, oh goodness, I hope she's not mad that I mentioned her again. Hi, Mama. But anyways, his mom was like, wow, I've never seen this before. And so I thought, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could put this on YouTube and have somebody narrate it? So I chose, I hope you've heard of this man. He's wonderful. His name is Mr. Josh Stanley. He was in the, National Geographic show, American Weed, but even more important than that, he helps patients in Colorado and beyond on a daily basis. He's the kindest, warmest man. He truly cares about Peter's story, so he's going to be narrating it. So we're going to have it out on Christmas Eve, we hope, online on my YouTube channel. We want it to get out to every single patient everywhere, so I'm hoping you'll help us share that.
Yeah, sure.
And, very cool. I have over 500 people wanting to go and listen to it and watch it.
I poked those guys a little bit, and I poked that show a little bit last year when it came out and stuff. But the truth is, I did like those guys. Oh yes, wow. He's just a very good man. He's very kind, and they look like a fun bunch to hang out with. Yes, I definitely said that I would love to meet him. And, like, if I go to Colorado, and, I want to meet him and Mrs. Josh. That's what I call her, because I don't know what her first name is. Mrs. Josh. Yeah, I mean. That's funny. Well, no, I always call people Mr. and Mrs. and Ms., and people think I'm nuts. They're like, Julia, just call us by our first name. And I'm like, no, it's a matter of respect. It's just the way I am. It's sort of refreshingly old-fashioned, you know. I mean, it really is. I don't know. I am old-fashioned, and that's the other thing. Is I don't date guys, you know. I don't go out on dates, and I just. You make that sound like maybe there's. Never mind. That was going to be funny. You said I don't date guys, and I was sitting here going like, what? Cats? What? What do you? No. It's just. It caught me off guard. Yeah, I see all these relationships and how complicated they are, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm just better off by myself, you know? Well, I don't know if that's the thing. You know, I'm not going to try to change your mind, but I don't know. Because listen, you know what, truthfully, I don't mean to get off on it, but I just thought of something that could maybe possibly be helpful to you or anybody else that thinks that way. You know, have you ever seen, well, no, never mind. One time I saw a meteor. And you know what? It actually happened in reverse. Tawny saw one night, and going back the other direction the next night in Arizona, I saw one too. But once we both were in a position where we could say, oh, do you remember? See, that made it real, because if I never would have shared that meteor sighting with somebody that I care about, it's sort of not real. So the history that you can have with somebody, if you can work through, you know, this throwaway society we live in and the tendency to want to throw people away and get a new snack, I mean, it can be very rich. It can. So there you go. PSA. Yes, but in Peter's case, he went on national TV. He's basically talking about romantic love. And he was saying, hey, look, you know, it's not for everybody. And it doesn't have to be for everybody.
and they were asking him all sorts of questions, like, "Oh, are you committed to somebody?" He's like, "No." But he was actually, people don't know this maybe, but he was really famous back in the day. He was on Oprah and on Good Housekeeping, and and Playboy, and Time Magazine even did stuff of his. I mean, he was all over the place, and
wow, I'll go check that.
Because he also did a photography book, and he had a lot of celebrities, a book of photographs like Elizabeth Taylor and other celebrities.
Thank you for bringing that up, Ms. Julie. Portraits. It's great. It's still in print. I have a couple copies available. I hope you don't mind me plugging this, but I have some T-shirts available too. And it's got PeterMcWilliams.org on the front, and it's got a beautiful photo of him when he was healthy. And on the back, there's a quote: "Nausea is an unsolved problem of medicine, and marijuana is the finest anti-nausea medication known to science." And I'm offering those for donation, and it all goes to helping me travel to speak at all these places, because I personally cannot afford to do it on my own. And I want people to get something out of it, not just donate money. They should be able to get something out of it. And the T-shirts are like a teaching tool. Yes, there's this lady named Lene. Hi, Lene, out in Washington State. She said that she wears her Peter shirts, and people are like, "Who's that?" And it's a great educational tool. So
So
right, and they can get that on PeterMcWilliams.org, right?
Yes, they can. And the Facebook page is, I hope I get this right, Facebook.com/Remember Peter McWilliams. That's the Facebook.
Okay.
That's my.
And we'll have a link to that on our website also on Cannabis Nation Radio. So they can go and they'll be able to find it. Now, so I'm curious, what is the most important thing you think you learned from Peter?
Oh, goodness. Never give up. And, it's important to me because my situation, I've actually gotten teased a lot. And people can be pretty cruel, but
yes.
I'm told that I have a heart of gold, so for what that's worth. And I just feel like people should be kind to each other, and that to never give up, and to try to go for your dreams and not be scared, and live life to the fullest and fight for what's right. He fought to the very end, and he was diagnosed with AIDS and cancer in 1996, and he hadn't done cannabis since college, and he found that it was the one thing that kept his meds down, and the next thing you know, the federal government said you can't do it anymore. So when people say he's a drug war victim, I don't like that as much as I like drug war warrior, because he went out fighting. He didn't stop fighting. He wasn't a quitter.
But
I'm babbling.
No, that's okay. That's good. Was he on the federal? Was he one of the federal patients? And then when they removed AIDS from the list, is that what he was a victim of, though? Even though you don't like the word victim, but is that the situation?
Well, he was actually under Proposition 215. He was allowed to take medical cannabis, but what ended up happening was he was, along with a friend of his at the time, he was growing plants.
And you can say it, Todd McCormick. We can mention Todd.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
And they were growing these plants, and he had published a book, of Todd's, and basically they were starting to target Peter. He was starting to write books that were critical of the DEA, and they ended up raiding his place and taking his computers, and basically his work was totally ruined. I mean, this work that he had done was like gone, and in a mysterious house fire. Isn't that wild? And
oh really?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they basically started picking on him because he was they thought that he was growing the plants for profit. And he was saying, hey, I'm growing these for the patients. And they jailed him for 30 days. And he said, if you keep doing this, your mom and your brother are going to lose their house. And, so he didn't fight it at that point, but he loved his family. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. That shows a lot of loyalty.
Right.
So
right.
He didn't
but
want
it also
them
shows
to take the fall.
It also shows that they only call it extortion when it goes a certain direction, or it's done by certain people. It's not that it's wrong.
Right.
Because the United States government doesn't seem. There's a lot of things that I guess as citizens we believe are wrong, but you could never tell by watching the behavior of the United States government, because as an entity, all they do is deceive and abuse and destroy. Really, I mean, I'm not trying to save your cards and letters saying what a bad American I am, but because I'm not. I mean, sometimes the most important American is the one who's willing to stand up on the wall and say, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah, no, that's true.
And I think
that
Peter was,
history proves it.
Yes. And I feel like Peter was becoming just too much of a loud and proud person, and they had to target him. And the other thing was he was coming across very intelligent.
Yeah, they hate that.
Wasn't someone that they could peg as, he's just some, high guy that's sitting around smoking and, just this lazy slacker,
Lazy slacker. I love the way you said that.
Well, you know what, too, though? By that time, he was probably quite well connected as far as with, the celebrities and, even, I think I read somewhere, I can't remember his name, but who's the conservative that is a well-known conservative that even looked up to him?
William F. Buckley.
Yeah,
William F. Buckley. Yes. I was surprised to read that.
He discovered Peter's computer books and became a fan back in the day. And Peter was able, that's another thing we were talking about earlier, Peter was able to persuade him because he treated him with respect. Here's somebody that was on the other side. And Peter didn't try to tear him down or, hurt him. He tried to get him on his side and convince him. And he convinced him. And William F. Buckley, kept defending him, towards the end. It was amazing. And I've got those pieces on the petermcwilliams.org, too, that Mr. Buckley wrote.
Oh, good. Interesting.
It's important that we... Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Say it.
I just feel like it's important that the most important thing people need to know is that this is a living tribute. Yes, he's been dead for 12 years, but people still care. They're still influenced by him. And I'm doing these interviews with these people. All these people in the movement, anybody who's been influenced by him and wants to speak about him. And it's just amazing. Everybody I talk to just loves Peter McWilliams.
Yeah, well, I do too. And you know what? On that note, man, we're just about out of time. So you know what? We're going to let you go, Julia. Beautiful job representing Peter. You are solid gold. Beautiful.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming on,
leave
Julia.
you with a quote? Can I leave you with a quote? I am the representative of all the sick people, and what they are doing to me is only the worst case right now. But there will be others. I'm living on borrowed time anyway. I owe this part of my life to luck and modern medical science, but I can't imagine what the rest of it will be like if they won't let me use medical marijuana. Peter McWilliams.
Wow, I guess we found out, huh? Damn it.
Yes.
Man,
and while alive, live. Remember that. While alive, live.
Good one. Good one. Thank you so much.
And snort when you laugh, darn it, so I don't feel alone next time.
Okay. Good night.
Okay, thanks, Julia.
Sending you guys hugs.
So you guys, listen, we got about a minute left here. I'm not sure how others get from point A to point B on certain issues, and maybe being a marginalized citizen for daring to use and support marijuana, I had a more direct line. I don't know. But I find that understanding others requires a constant examination of your biases.
Say what you want about bias and hate, but I can't make that up for you.
Yeah, Yeah, well, listen, you know what? I think that Peter was a master lemonade maker, you know what? And I want to encourage everyone to go check out petermcwilliams.org and be good to each other. And you know what? Until next week, I want you to be safe out there, and good night from CannabisNationRadio.com.
Good night.
You're listening to Cannabis Nation with your hosts, Mike Boutin and Julie Rose, right here on LA Talk Radio.